This is an American Council for Immigration Reform special report.
Mr. Chairman, members of the subcommittee, I'm pleased to be here today to discuss the impact that implementation of S-2611 by USCIS would have on national security. As a former director of the Office of Security and Investigations, the only law enforcement component within USCIS, I must point out that the basic premise of this hearing, that implementation of 2611 could create an administrative and national security nightmare, is faulty. The fact is, an administrative and national security nightmare already exists at USCIS under our current immigration policy. Asking USCIS to implement a proposal as sweeping as 2611 without first addressing the existing national security vulnerabilities and our immigration system would be irresponsible at best and could actually facilitate ongoing criminal enterprises. I therefore agree with Director Gonzalez, who said just this past Monday at a naturalization ceremony in New Jersey, if we had to institute a guest worker program today, then the system couldn't handle it. I would go one step further, however, and suggest that USCIS could never implement 2611 without fully compromising this nation's security. The integrity of the underlying immigration system is simply too flawed. Three overarching issues must, in my professional view, be addressed before any policy reform can be effective. The first is rampant corruption. When I last briefed this subcommittee, the Office of Security and Investigations had a backlog of over 2,000 complaints against USCIS employees. Included among these were national security cases. I had no case management system and a grand total of 4 criminal investigators in the field. Today, almost a year later, the backlog is well over 3,000 complaints. New complaints are still coming in at a rate of around 50 per week. OSI still has a grand total of 4 criminal investigators in the field and no case management system. Despite 4 arrests and 2 convictions of USCIS employees in the past few months alone on charges including soliciting sex for citizenship, selling $1 million worth of green cards in a money laundering scheme, falsifying immigration documents, and embezzlement, USCIS management continues, in writing, to insist that sufficient safeguards are built into the system to prevent immigration officers from illegally granting the benefits of their choosing to the person of their choosing at the time of their choosing for the reason of their choosing. The second issue is a prevailing customer service mentality that prioritizes reducing backlogs and moving benefits above all else. For example, USCIS has created an auto adjudication system that can apparently process applications for work permits from start to finish without any employee actually examining the supporting documentation for signs of fraud. The system bypasses all but the initial IBIS security name check and therefore searches only the printed name of the applicant and not any spelling variation or aliases. Hardly effective. With a work permit in hand, an alien can obtain a Social Security number and even under the Real ID Act, a driver's license, then open a bank account, perhaps obtain a firearms license, board an aircraft, etc. USCIS personnel without the knowledge of the USCIS or DHS chief information officers developed a computer system, embedded it into the DHS IT backbone, allowing for remote users to manually insert immigration files into the USCIS database in such a manner so that all security background checks were circumvented and immigration benefits were granted to aliens of their choosing. Following an initial report from IT security staff, senior USCIS leadership quashed any further investigation, including criminal investigation, of the system and took actions to cover up its existence. It should be noted that official USCIS documents revealed this program was not a law enforcement program. As of March 10, 2006, the USCIS Headquarters Asylum Division had a backlog of 515 asylum cases involving applicants residing in the United States who have provided material support to a terrorist or terrorist organization. Their cases are on hold to give DHS time to develop procedures for considering whether the Secretary of Homeland Security should exercise discretion to grant them a waiver of inadmissibility so they can stay permanently in the United States despite their terrorist ties. The third issue is the ongoing failure to share critical law enforcement information within DHS or between DHS and other agencies. As of August 2005, some 1,400 immigration applications that had generated national security hits on IBIS were sitting in limbo at USCIS headquarters because the adjudicators trying to process them were unable to obtain the national security information that caused them to be flagged from other agencies. As of late September 2005, USCIS had a total backlog of more than 41,000 applications with IBIS hits requiring further investigation. Because USCIS is not a law enforcement agency, the FBI does not permit USCIS personnel to conduct name checks on immigration applicants, and as of May 2006, the FBI name check backlog had grown to almost 236,000. As non-law enforcement personnel, USCIS adjudicators are prohibited from routinely running criminal history checks on applicants. In closing, Mr. Chairman, on June 20th, Karl Rove told the National Federation of Independent Business, immigration is turning into a big problem. The more you look at it, the more clear it is that every single part of the system is broken. In medical parlance, we must stop the hemorrhage before we can treat the underlying condition. The proposed Senate bill and its associated timeline would overwhelm an already overburdened USCIS and put this nation at great peril. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the subcommittee. With that, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Maxwell. What would be the ramifications for national security and public safety by allowing contract workers to adjudicate amnesty applications?
At the time, I was involved in planning for the temporary worker program, as it was called then. There was discussion that the contract employees would not undergo a full background investigation and would still be given access to sensitive law enforcement databases to vet the alien applicants, which raised some grave concerns because at the same time we had just convicted a contract employee for accessing those sensitive law enforcement databases and releasing sensitive law enforcement information to a criminal who was being investigated by the Drug Enforcement Administration. So without thoroughly vetting those contract employees and giving them access to terrorist watch lists, obviously you connect the dots. We're not sure who we're giving access to these terrorist databases, and can they be co-opted by foreign intelligence, by terrorist groups, by criminal organizations. The second part of the equation with hiring this second workforce for USCIS to conduct background investigations on the alien applicants was that the background investigation process itself is flawed. As the Inspector General recently reported, 45,000 aliens from high-risk nations, state sponsors of terrorism, have been released into the general population since 2001 because the background check process itself is flawed. We simply cannot verify the backgrounds, the identities, the countries of origins of everybody who comes through the system. We just don't know who they are. We're essentially giving these people new identities, releasing them into the country, even though they're coming to us from countries that sponsor terrorism. So it really does present a grave national security risk.
What can you do to help? First, visit the American Council for Immigration Reform's website at ancir.org. There you'll find additional information not covered in this video, as well as links to other videos covering additional congressional hearings on the failings of USCIS, as well as transcripts of the full testimony of Michael Maxwell, Rosemary Jenks, and other witnesses who have testified on this issue. Second, pass this information along. Send our web link to your friends and to others who need to be concerned about the major problems facing America's legal immigration system. Third, call the Capitol Switchboard at 202-224-3121 and ask to speak with your senators and congressmen. Tell them you want immediate and fundamental reforms to address the problems of fraud and corruption in USCIS and the Department of Homeland Security. Fourth, call radio talk show hosts and encourage them to visit ancir.org to view this video and others, and invite Michael Maxwell, Rosemary Jenks, and other experts you will learn about at ancir.org on the air to discuss our legal immigration crisis and the role of USCIS. Fifth, send letters to the editor of national, regional, and local newspapers regarding America's legal immigration crisis. Refer readers to ancir.org, where they can view this and other videos, read the hearing transcripts, and investigate this issue themselves. Finally, in this dangerous post-9/11 world, our nation is entering into one of the most important presidential election campaigns in its entire history. We must elect a president who is fully committed to overhauling our legal immigration system. It is important that you contact all the candidates' campaign headquarters and ask them how they intend to fix our broken legal immigration system. If they haven't figured it out, refer them to answer.org. You can make a difference.